Hi friends, it's Mackenzie, also known as Emtothethird on Instagram, Ravelry, and now YouTube. And I asked all of you, my new followers on Instagram, new YouTube followers, for some questions this weekend. Just so you could get to know me a little bit more. I can kind of tell you what I'm about, and yeah, so I thought it would be super fun to have you guys provide the questions, and I've got a list of them here, and I guess I'm gonna answer them. Okay, so I decided I'm gonna start out this video by doing some general crafting questions, a little bit about my process, and then I'm gonna funnel it into some of the more personal stuff, just to get me warmed up and you warmed up. Yeah, but these are really good questions. I'm excited to think about them myself. The first question is what are some tips for people who want to learn how to sew but are intimidated? So in my experience, I came from, like, my whole family are very creative. My grandma is a sewer, my mom is a sewer, and despite that, I had a really hard time learning how to sew from them. Hence why I'm like the only knitter in the family and no one else really does a lot of like yarn crafting. I had to forge my own path, as I like to say. So what I found helped me is, first of all, learn from a teacher how to use the sewing machine properly. You know, you can really find sewing machines for pretty affordable, reasonable costs. Mine was an old one that I did inherit from my grandma. It is not, it's like not a brand name. It was a vintage machine. It's very sturdy. You know, it was a really good learner machine because I could get a straight line of sewing, and I did a lot with it. But I needed to learn how to use it first, and if you're pulling a machine out for the first time or you're using like a vintage machine that you found at a thrift store, I'd really recommend taking it in and investing the money to have someone, you know, clean it, look at it, kind of make sure everything's in order, and then go take a class. Just, I think, you know, with any machine, if you're not using it correctly, it's really going to be working against you. So take a beginning class, work on sewing some like straight lines, make a couple tote bags. Garment making is what you're mostly interested in. I would look at Colette patterns or seamwork patterns. Those ones are the ones that I followed because each one of their patterns comes with like detailed blog posts. They're really expecting you to be a beginner. They'll go over each step and then they'll describe why you're doing it. So that's how I learned what stay stitching was. That's how, you know, all of these like sewing terms. But I would just say just try it. What's the worst that can happen? That's kind of how I learned, was just taking that initial beginning sewing course, and then from there taking some of these indie pattern companies that really outline the beginner steps. And yeah, that's how I learned. The next question I have is about yarn, which I love. Look at my little stashy back there. Stashy stash. So my next question is about my favorite weight of yarn to knit with and favorite fiber content. I don't really have a favorite size. I don't love super bulky stuff. I don't gravitate towards that. But like I'm fine anywhere from like bulky to fingering. I don't love lace. But yeah, I don't have like a super strong preference toward anyone in particular. I don't discriminate against my yarn. Like, I don't know. I do tend to like sweaters that are on the thinner side. Oh yeah, favorite fiber content. Wool. I love knitting with wool. Worsted spun, woolen spun. I just love wool. How do you choose colors within your style and for yarn? And I have the end of another question is like, what colors are you into right now? Colors that I am constantly drawn to are really mustard, yellow, light pastel-y pink, hot pink. I like tealy blues, so blues that have green in them. Let's see, I also really like lilac purples, mauve colors. I try to think about like what is cohesive like in a wardrobe, but honestly, like I'm very drawn to the same colors, and so I kind of just end up with colors that are pretty similar to one another. So like that chartreuse back there, I love. My hair color I like a lot. The next question is, what are your summer craft goals? I try not to set strict goals for crafting in particular because it is like a creative pursuit. So if I put too many rules on it, then I find that I don't make as much as I want to. Summer is also a little bit different because there's other things to be doing. So as opposed to in the winter where, you know, we're all holed up inside. The summer I usually put together a garden, spend time in the garden. I do a lot more cooking. I just try not to put too many like restrictions on myself. Otherwise, again, I just don't make as much as I want to. Like right now I have like the most whips I've ever had, which is like 4 on the needles at once. And like some of them I don't count because they're like in retirement or like hibernating. I think that's what Ravelry calls it. Some of them are hibernating and I'm fine with that. Like I'm gonna come back to it later. I don't like feel guilt or shame about the fact that I haven't finished something. I do want to make a pair of Yanta overalls, which is the new pattern that Helen's Closet came out with. I was one of the test sewers, but I couldn't get the fit right. It was not a cute perma wedgie look at all. So I'm hoping to find some more fabric for that. It is quite a bit of yardage because it's like a full overall pattern, but I want a pair of those. I have some adjustments that I think will really work for me that Helen actually recommended, and some other folks who are in the testing group also recommended to me. So I'm excited to try that, but it's just not gonna happen like right now or tomorrow. Okay, if I were to categorize my goals broadly as opposed to like very strict, I would like to make some basics. So like hashtag summer of basics. So I want to make some basic like t-shirts. I want to make a pair of overalls, and I want to knit. I want to catch up on my sock knitting, which is, I try to do 1 per month, but I did it a couple years ago and I got a little burnt out and didn't knit very many last year. So this year I'm trying to do 1 a month. It's again not like super strict, just kind of like casually doing that. So I would say that those are my 3 goals for right now, which I think are like totally doable and not a ton of pressure. So the next one I'm excited about. So on my Instagram profile, I have a couple of hashtags that I really feel like define me, and they're Granny Punks and Abuela Punks. And Granny Punks is something that I first heard of. I'm not sure if this is where it originated, but someone on Tumblr made these patches that said Granny Punks on them. It was like the screen printed patch. She was someone who coincidentally went to the same undergrad as I did, but I found her through Tumblr, and then like she posted something one day and I was like, that's right down the street from my school, and then we found out that we went to the same college. And so I ordered one of these patches that she had designed and screen printed, and it was like these really pretty scissors that said Granny Punks on it. And I was sort of like, that label resonates with me so much. As, you know, doing traditionally domestic work, like I love knitting, I love sewing, I love baking, and also, you know, having radical ideas, you know, and also sort of looking alternative and having a little bit of a punk style. Less so now, but definitely more so then. I had one, like a patch like on a cardigan of mine, and then I moved it to a jacket of mine, and then I moved it to something else. So it's really been with me for a long time. And I've met other people through that hashtag who are really awesome. You know, I feel like if other people identify as Granny Punks, it really, you know, they resonate with me as people too. And Abuela Punks is just the Mexican version of that, Mexican-American version of that. If you identify as a Granny Punk, let me know in the comments. There's just like a couple questions left, and this one's a little bit more like personal. And so this person asks, I suffered from imposter syndrome. Did you? And how did you handle it? I don't really resonate with imposter syndrome. I have heard a lot of people talk about it. I think it became a little bit of like an it word, and I think I've definitely heard it like in an academic context of just people kind of like doubting their knowledge. And I also definitely think that I've heard it way more in relation to women who, you know, are basically told that they don't belong, and also people of color, like in academic institutions. But I don't resonate with it exactly as a feeling. So the way I combat this kind of like self-doubt in myself is by thinking of all the white men who sit down and record 1 to 2 hour long podcasts every week and have the confidence to know that someone wants to listen to their opinions about something. And I know that I am way more interesting than a lot of them, and that people want to hear me talk, and some people won't, and that's fine. I'm not trying to please everyone. I'm just really trying to be me, and I feel like I have enough confidence to be me, and if you don't like it, that's fine. But like, if so many white men can sit down and just be like, someone wants to listen to me talk about this inane subject, then I know that someone will want to listen to me talk about this inane subject. So this last question is coming out as a lifelong process, and like specifically within the crafting community. So coming out is like queer people basically being like, hey everyone, I'm queer. So this idea of coming out as a lifelong process, if you've never heard this before, is constantly having to tell people that you're queer. What this is referring to is the idea that like every time I meet someone, I need to tell them that I am queer, because it's just gonna be assumed that I am straight. No matter the fact that I have like femme tattooed on my arm and have had an undercut and like any of the other ways that queer people code as queer in their dress, in like the way that they present, in the way that they talk, like whatever it is, it's considered rude to assume that someone is queer. Queer people are constantly having to, tell people that we meet, tell coworkers, tell people on the internet that we're queer. But I feel like I come out as Latina way more often than as queer. And, that's a privilege that I have. And I try to do that because I don't want to be assimilated. I mean, this is obviously, you can tell that I'm kind of having issues talking about it. Not having issues, but just having fully formed thoughts. It's something that I think about all the time, because it's something that literally is every day of my life, that I'm either coming out as queer or Chicana, and even fat positive. Like, people just assume I am uncomfortable in my body, and I have to tell them otherwise. But I think it is radical to have the power to do that and to like make the decision to do it. It's not an easy question. And I think in the craft community, the thing that people come up against is like, we can be incognito and be in this group and no one will be the wiser. But if we do that, are we harming ourselves, and are we making it a safe space for other queer people who are coming in, other people of color who are coming in who don't know? And that's a complicated question. I tend to not want to be in groups where I can't be myself and be open. My partner is trans, I'm queer, we're both white passing Chicanos, and it doesn't serve anyone any good to keep that quiet. It is important for me to out myself, because then other people will see me as, I don't even, ally isn't the right word, to see me as someone else as their community, and that I'm in that space. I am advocating for us to take up space in a knitting group, in the knitting community, at a yarn store. And, you know, I try hard to, you know, be that person, because I do have a lot of privileges that allow me to do that. For now, thank you so much for watching. I hope you really enjoyed getting to know me. If you have any questions, you can leave them in a comment. I'll do another Q&A soon. If you really like this, I would really encourage you to subscribe. It helps me out a lot. Like this video. Yeah, and I'll see you next Thursday. Bye.